Guys, I hope things are going well for you and you're enjoying your time at home. And today we're going to be talking about adverbs. So if you want to take out your grammar book and open up to page 267, we're going to talk about recognizing adverbs today. So let's talk about an adverb. An adverb is a word that describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Adverbs are going to answer questions. Answer the questions how, when, where, why, how often, and to what extent. Remember, adjectives are words that describe nouns or pronouns, and they had their own set of questions that they answered. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Adverbs are going to describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. They have their set of questions. They answer how, when, where, why, how often, and to what extent. Notice also that the word not, or as its contraction, the NT, like can't, the NT, those are going to be adverbs. When you see those in a sentence, if you're ever asked to label that word, it's an adverb. They say, we cannot go to the game. Your verb would be can go. Not would be an adverb describing the verb. Okay? Now, adverbs, most of the time, they're going to be modifying verbs. Now, they do also modify adjectives and adverbs, and we'll look at that as well. But first, let's look at a few examples of adverbs modifying verbs. If you look at the first example on the screen here, Grandpa often takes a brisk walk after meals. Grandpa's my subject, takes is my verb. Often describes takes. It answers a question, how often, right? It answers that. It tells me he often takes. So it's describing takes, so it is an adverb. The next one, the water dripped slowly from the faucet. Slowly is describing dripped. Dripped is my verb. It's telling me how it dripped. It dripped slowly. The next one, Chris will not arrive until Friday. There's an example I was telling you about the word not. It's describing the verb will arrive. Here's an example with the adverb placed at the beginning of the sentence. Anxiously, the father of the injured child paced the floor. Anxiously is describing for me how the father paced. Paced is the action, paced is the verb. Anxiously is telling me how he paced. So that would make anxiously an adverb. Now, there's a little hint for you down here at the bottom of the screen. Many adverbs are formed by adding ly to adjectives. So you see that in number 2, dripped slowly. And in this number 4 here, anxiously, the father, you see the ly. Now, be careful because, as usual with English, and I've told you this in class before, that we cannot say in English, always, 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 this is the case, right? We have exceptions. So you can't look at a word, and just because it says ly at the end, that does not automatically make it an adverb. I'm just saying that many, many times, if you see an ly at the end of the word, it's probably an adverb, but not always. You have to double check. There are some words that are exceptions that end in ly, but they're not adverbs, like the word friendly. Friendly would not describe a verb. Friendly is always used to describe a noun or a pronoun, like the friendly girl or the friendly dog. Friendly, even though it ends in ly, it's an adjective. Or costly. They made a costly mistake. Okay, it's describing a noun, so it is an adjective. So you can't 100% of the time say that if it ends in ly, it must be an adverb. No, but if it ends in ly, that can be a clue. It might possibly be an adverb. Look at it just to make sure. Make sure that it is describing a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, okay? All right, adverbs can also modify adjectives, so let's look at that for a minute. Here's my example sentence. Grandmother makes especially good pickles. Good is my adjective describing pickles. Especially, notice it ends in a Y. Especially is a word describing good. Good is an adjective describing pickles. So this word is describing an adjective. That means this is an adverb, right? To what extent are they good? How good are they? They are especially good, okay? Adverbs occasionally will modify other adverbs. This isn't really, doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, okay, where it could modify another adverb. So here's an example. Nick approached the beehive somewhat cautiously. Here's an ly word. Cautiously is describing for me how he approached. So it's describing the verb, so it is an adverb. Then this word somewhat is describing for me cautiously. To what extent was his caution? How cautiously? Well, somewhat cautiously. So that would make this an adverb describing another adverb. Okay? Now, infinitives can also be used as adverbs. Remember when we've talked about infinitives, I've told you before that infinitives are the one type of verbal that can do three jobs. It can be an adjective, it can be a noun, or it can be an adverb. Okay, so I gave you an example here. Are you prepared? Sorry about that, it just covered up my example sentence. Are you prepared to take the quiz? To take is describing are prepared. So therefore it makes this infinitive an an adverb. It's being used to describe the verb, so it's called an adverb. Okay? Go ahead and look in your book now. Turn to page 268 and let's look at some of these exercises. I would like you to do the exercises on page 268 and 269 for today for practice with finding your adverbs. So we're going to do the first few together, and then I would like you to finish them on your own. And if you have any questions while you're working on them, or if you want me to look at them and see if you did it correctly, please email me, and I would be happy to do that. You can take a picture of your exercises and ask me, hey, Mrs. Mean, can you double check and see if I got all of these correct? If you would like me to do that, I'm happy to do that. Let's look at exercise A. So in the first blank, you're writing the adverb. In the second blank, you're writing the verb or verb phrase that the adverb modifies. Now, a way that you can double check your answers is to read your adverb and the verb and see if it makes sense together. Okay, so let's look at number one. For a short time after reaching the shore, Robinson Crusoe ran madly about on the island. Now, the first thing you should see is there's an ly word. That might be an adverb. Let me check. Okay, so I look at it and madly. What is madly doing? It is describing for me how he ran. So that would make it an adverb. So in the first blank, I would put madly. In the second blank, I would put ran. So then let's read them together, see if it makes sense. Madly ran. Yes, it makes sense. Okay, let's look at number two. He carefully gathered needed supplies from his ship. You should see an ly word. That should be a clue for you. So your adverb then in this sentence is carefully. You put that in the first blank. Now, what is it describing? Gathered, right? It's telling me how he gathered carefully. So carefully gathered is number two. Number three, Crusoe also found 3 Bibles among the cargo. What do you think the adverb is in that sentence? If you said also, you are correct. What is also describing? If you said found, you are correct. So you should have also found. Number 4, he faithfully made notches in a post for his calendar. What is the adverb in that sentence? If you said faithfully, you are correct. What is faithfully describing? If you said made, you are correct. It's telling me how he made those notches faithfully. We'll do one more together, number 5. Crusoe's days were always filled with plenty of work. What is the adverb in this sentence? If you said always, you are correct. What is always describing? If you said were filled, you are correct again. Okay, so I would like you to finish that exercise when we are done here. But for now, go ahead and skip down to exercise B. This exercise, we're looking for adverbs that modify adjectives. So you're going to find the adverb, you're going to underline it, then you're going to draw an arrow from the adverb to the adjective that it is describing. So let's look at number 1. The ermine was barely visible against the background of snow. Hopefully you see an ly word, and that's a clue for you, barely. So you're going to underline barely. What is it describing? It is describing visible. Now, let's see what makes visible an adjective. Well, let's look at a sentence. Ermine is my subject. Was is my verb. Was is a linking verb. Visible is my complement. Since I have a linking verb, my complement has to either be a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. In this case, visible is describing ermine, so it makes it a predicate adjective. Therefore, barely is an adverb describing the adjective visible. Okay, let's try another one. Look at number 2. The honeycomb is an intricately designed storehouse. Okay, intricately, there's my ly word. So let's check it. Intricately is describing what? Describing designed. Okay, the honeycomb is a storehouse. Designed is an adjective describing storehouse. And so intricately is an adverb describing the adjective designed. Okay? Look at number 3. The musical term fortissimo means the music should be very loud. What do you think the adverb is in this sentence? If you said very, you are correct. I will give you a hint. Most of the time, when you see the word very, it is going to be an adverb because it usually will be describing an adjective. When you see the word very, you can think adverb, okay? Very is describing loud. Loud, again, is a predicate adjective. Music should be loud. Adjective, so very is an adverb describing loud, or to what extent, right? How loud should it be? To what extent? Very. Okay. Number 4, carefully planted decoys attracted ducks to the pond. What do you think the adverb is? If you said carefully, you are correct. Underline it. What is it describing? If you said planted, you are correct again. Planted is describing decoys, so it's an adjective. Carefully is the adverb describing planted. Let's do one more together, and then I'll have you finish the exercise later. Number 5, the decathlon participant should be an extremely versatile athlete. What is your adverb? Hopefully you said extremely. What is it describing? The arrow should go to versatile. Good, which is my adjective describing athlete. And so extremely would be my adverb. It's describing the adjective versatile. All right. Finish those 6 through 10 in a few minutes when we're done here. All right, let's look at exercise C. Now we're going to look at adverbs that are modifying other adverbs. Okay. Again, you're going to underline the adverb, draw an arrow to the adverb that it is describing. Okay. So number 1, Paul loved the Lord so much that he was willing to suffer manifold tortures for his sake. So number 1, the adverb that is describing another adverb, does anybody think they know what it is? If you said so, you are correct. So underline so, and then the arrow is going to go to much. It is describing to what extent, how much, so much. Okay, so is the adverb modifying much, which is the adverb describing Paul's love. Okay, all right, number 2. The carpenter walked across the beams very skillfully. If you remember what I said just a few minutes ago, you should be able to pick out the adverb just like that. All right, did you pick it? You should have said very. All right, so underline very. What is very describing? What's the other adverb in there? If you said skillfully, you are correct. Number 3, quite often the final work done by a person is called his swan song. All right, what do you think the adverb describing another adverb is in this sentence? If you said quite, you are correct. Quite is an adverb describing the adverb often. Okay, which those often is describing is called. Okay, it's telling me to what extent. Often. Well, how often? Quite often. So I have the adverb quite describing the adverb often. Number 4, a toboggan can slide across the snow surprisingly fast. Okay, what is the adverb describing another adverb? If you said surprisingly, you are correct. So underline that. What is surprisingly describing? It's describing the adverb fast, which is describing how the toboggan can slide. It's describing the verb can slide. So you have surprisingly, the adverb describing fast, which is the adverb describing can slide. Okay, let's do one more together in this exercise. If one does not memorize while he is young, memorization will be much more difficult later. What is the adverb that is describing another adverb? Now, some of you might be tempted to say, oh, I see not. That's an adverb. You are correct. Not is an adverb, but it's describing the verb does memorize. Okay. And in this exercise, we're just looking for adverbs that are describing another adverb. So, do you see it? An adverb describing another adverb? If you underline much, you are correct. Much is the adverb describing more, which is an adverb describing the adjective difficult. Okay, so much is your adverb describing your adverb more. Okay, all right, so you finished 6 through 10 on those. See if you can find the adverb in each one of those, the one that's describing another adverb. Okay, all right, now let's look at exercise D. We'll do a few of these together and then you can finish them on your own in a little bit. So you're going to draw one line under an adverb that modifies a verb. Draw a circle around adverbs that modify adjectives. Draw a box around adverbs that modify adverbs. So now we have them all mixed up. You have to find the adverb and then you have to know what it is describing, which one it's describing. So let's look at number 1. Because the silkworms were so highly valued, many people tried to import them. All right, the first thing you should see is highly. Highly should be underlined because it is describing the verb were valued. Okay, so you underline highly. Now there is another adverb in there. Does anybody see it? I hope that you pointed out so. So you will put a box around because it is an adverb describing the adverb highly. Okay, so those are your 2 adverbs in that one. Number 2, the sap run was particularly abundant this year. What adverb do you see in that sentence? If you said particularly, you are correct. Now, what kind is it? What is the adverb doing? Hopefully, you would say that it is an adverb modifying an adjective. So you should have circled it because it is describing the adjective abundant. So the sap run was linking verb. Abundant is my predicate adjective. And particularly is describing that adjective. So it is an adverb describing an adjective. Particularly abundant. Okay. Number 3, Matthew successfully negotiated all of the turns on the driving course. What word do you see that you think is an adverb? If you said successfully, you are correct, and you should have underlined it because it is describing the verb negotiated. Let's try another one. Number 4, with the Holy Spirit's aid, Peter spoke much more boldly than he had spoken previously. There are several in this sentence. See if you can find them all. Okay, hopefully the easiest ones to find were boldly and previously. They both end in ly. I hope you chose to underline them because those are both adverbs that are modifying verbs. Boldly is describing how Peter spoke, and previously is also describing spoken, had spoken. So those should both be underlined. Then you have 2 of them that are modifying adverbs. So you should have put a box around much and more. Both of those are adverbs modifying adverbs. So I hope that you put boxes around those. All right, number 5. Hurricanes are a very real threat in Florida from June 1st to November 30th. Do you see that word that I told you? Every time you see it, just know that it's an adverb. I hope you saw it. It is very. What did you do to it? I hope that you circled it because it is an adverb that is describing adjective. Okay? Hurricanes are threat, predicate adjective, very real threat. Okay? So very is describing real, all right, which is an adjective, right? So you need to circle very, okay? Let's do one more. The mills of God grind slowly but surely. This one's pretty easy. I hope you see them. There's two of them. They both end with ly, right? Slowly but surely. And what did you do? Underline, circle, or box? I hope you said underline because those are both describing the verb, right? How the mills grind. How do they grind? Slowly but surely. Okay. Now finish that exercise. See if you can find them all. I'll give you a hint. In number 7, you'll find 2. Number 8, you'll find 1. Number 9, you'll find 1. Number 10, you'll find 2. Number 11, you'll find 1. Number 12, you'll find 4. Number 13, you'll find 2. And number 14, you will find 1. Then with exercise E, I want you to write sentences using the following words as adverbs. So write a sentence of your own. Use those words as adverbs and draw an arrow from the adverb to the word that it is describing. All right, so finish up those exercises. If you have any questions or you want me to look at your work and tell you if you've got it, then just please send me an email and I would be happy to do that. So until tomorrow, I hope you have a great rest of your day.